Hello, my name is Kayla Weaver and I'm a CPA at Arndt & Company CPAs. In this video, I'll be going over how to categorize transactions in QuickBooks Online. I'll give you some helpful hints and tricks along the way. So I have a sample company file open in QuickBooks Online right now, so we're not looking at a real client or anything. This is just a sample file that QuickBooks allows for anyone to go into, kind of play around in. So we're going to go to our banking tab over here, and then we're going to go to our banking tab up here, and we can see that we currently have 3 accounts linked. We've got a checking account, savings account, and MasterCard account. If you had accounts that you would need to link with QuickBooks, you could click this button and add that bank or credit card account. You basically just use your login details for normal online banking, and once you've gone through that process, it would be able to add it here. So at the end of each day, the next day, you'll come back, and if it's automatically updated, it will have pulled that previous day's transactions into QuickBooks. So it grabbed it from your bank or credit card and pulled it in here in your bank feeds. If you want to update it other than that night, or if it's for some reason hasn't updated, you can click this button here and it would update all of your accounts that you have linked. So I'm going to sort this by latest date. I just do that kind of by preference. Whenever I'm working on accounting by month, I like to just go through from the oldest to the newest and work on it that way. If I'm working on a lot of months at once, trying to maybe catch somebody's QuickBooks up or whatnot, sometimes makes more sense to do it by description. So you can also do it that way. It does it A to Z, and then you've got these bunched where you could go through them a little bit more quickly, most likely, than if you were to do it by date. And that's usually only if I have a lot of months to get through at once. If it's just a normal month that I'm doing, I'll usually just do it by latest date to newest date like this. So let's look through here. We are going to look at this transaction here, Books by Bessie. So you can see the description here. This is what the bank has pulled over as the description. So usually whenever you swipe your credit card or debit card, that company is going to have a description that it sends to the bank or credit card company on where you did that at. It can also happen with other types of transactions as well, wire payments, things like that. If you click on it, there's a drop down here that gives a little bit more detail. Like you can see bank detail here. In this case, it actually matches the description, but there are times when this will have quite a bit more text here that might be helpful. You can also see that QuickBooks has already pre-populated the payee field. So it's probably seen a transaction like this before, and in that instance, we must have chose Books by Bessie, and so it thinks maybe we need to put it there again, which it is correct. It's not always correct, so if it was not correct, we could come here, drop down, and look for the actual vendor that it should go to. If we don't have that vendor in here yet, we can click Add New, and then type it out. It's correctly set a vendor, and then save it. If you want more details, then you'll have to actually add a new vendor or a new customer from the appropriate screen over here. But I'm not going to go into the specifics on that right now. But you can also start typing like I just did there. We'll put it back to Books by Bessie. It also sometimes will guess which account it thinks it should go into. In this instance, it probably didn't have any idea, so it put it to uncategorized. But we're going to go ahead and update it. We're just going to put dues and subscriptions real quick. I'm going to skip over this area, a little too complex for this video. We'll go ahead and type our memo. You don't have to do this, but it is helpful, especially for larger dollar transactions. It can be helpful for a reminder. We could just put whatever it was for as a reminder to ourselves. If you want to attach a receipt while you're coding, you can do that by clicking on this Add Attachment button. It would pop up a new little screen where you can go find the file on your computer and then click Add. It would save it to this transaction once we hit this Add button. Now you can also hit multiple accounts. So if it's more than just dues and subscriptions, for example, you could hit split and have it hit somewhere else as well. So we could say 30 of it was for that, but 25 of it was for advertising. And then we could see we've added the full 55 between the two accounts, apply and accept. And that's just a way to, if you want to get more specific than just one account, you can do it in that way. Now, if we're buying a lot of things from Books by Bessie and we're almost always purchasing for dues and subscriptions or whatever it is for, you can create a rule. So we're just gonna, Books by Bessie. It's gonna be for money that's going out. So if we actually got a deposit from Books by Bessie, the rule would not apply to that. It's only gonna affect our checking account. So if we paid out of, let's say, the MasterCard account, this rule would not apply. If we wanted to do that, we would just click all bank accounts or whichever ones we want it to hit against. It's going to be applying this rule if the bank description comes over as Books by Bessie. We can see it's already defaulted to what I had here, dues and subscriptions. We're okay with that. That's where we want it to go. We like the Books by Bessie. This, I want to highly encourage you to unclick if it's clicked. We do not want to auto add. We don't like to auto add because we just like to do a quick double check. What if there was an instance where Books by Bessie was not dues and subscriptions? It's just a little bit more difficult if it's auto adding to remember to go back and look and find that transaction. Whereas if we just leave it like this, it's still in our bank feeds. If we would have pressed auto add, this would have been gone because it automatically added it without us clicking this add button. Instead, we can see that it's a rule. So usually Books by Bessie is dues and subscriptions. If we agree with that, then we can just hit add and it moves it from our bank feeds here into our bank register. So essentially, it's moving it from our bank feeds into the actual QuickBooks data. It'll either be in our profit and loss report or balance sheet now that we've added it. When it's just sitting in your bank feeds, it's actually not going to be on any reports. That does not happen until you actually come down here and add the transaction or match it up. So speaking of matching, you can see this next one is actually a match transaction. That means that before it had actually came through as bank feeds, we have a transaction we had entered for this same amount and QuickBooks thinks it's a match. So we must have already entered this expense for whatever reason. Some people like to do it the day of, whereas like I said, these usually pull the next day. So if you had done that manually, it's trying to match it with this. We can do a double check. If we agree with the information we see here, we think that's a correct match, we can hit match and it matches the expense we already put into QuickBooks with the bank feed. That way we're not doing it twice. Otherwise we're going to be overstating the expense here. Now if it's incorrect, say there was another $108.09 transaction, we need to actually separately categorize it. If it's not already in QuickBooks, it's trying to match it, we hit this categorize button, we can type whatever the correct details are and hit add, just like we did before. But if it is correct, we can go ahead and match it, and that clears it here from our bank feeds. Down here, we've got a match. This one's for an invoice payment. So we're actually keeping track of customer invoicing within QuickBooks, and then once that customer pays us, we record that in QuickBooks, and we can see that the bank feeds has picked up one of those payments. It thinks that it matches this payment for this invoice. If we know that all this is correct, same exact thing, we can hit this match button. Otherwise, if we know this is something brand new that we haven't yet entered into QuickBooks, we would categorize it appropriately here. Now, one thing that I find helpful whenever I'm going through and doing the accounting is to sometimes look up a vendor or a customer as I'm coding something. So let's say, for example, on this Hicks Hardware, I know that I've spent something at Hicks Hardware before. I can't remember where I coded it. Now, just because I've coded it there in the past doesn't obviously necessarily mean that's correct now, but it can be helpful. So we can actually go, this is one reason why coding with the vendor name is so important. We can go search by vendor and see what has hit that vendor account. So if you actually don't want to have to go back and forth like this, you can open a new separate tab with QuickBooks, which is really cool. You right click here, open link a new tab, and it opens that expense tab in a separate tab from our bank feeds. Now we've got both going, and it's a little bit quicker, at least in my opinion, to do this than to try to toggle back and forth within the same window. So I'm going to go over to vendor, and then we were looking for Hicks Hardware. So let's start typing that in. This is the one. We can see where we've coded it in the past. So we've got a couple different job materials that we've hit here. You can also, if you would like to open it up and look, you can click on it and it will open that transaction. But that can sometimes be useful, like I said, whenever you're going through and coding things, to have that separate tab. And again, you can have more than one, so you can actually open up a third one here. So I'm going to open up a third one because I want to put one of these tabs with my customers. So if I wanted to search for a customer kind of similarly to what I just did with the vendor, like on this cool cars one, you could do that and just do the exact same thing and toggle back and forth like this, instead of having to search, go back to banking, go to expenses. It just expedites that process again. Anything we can do to be a little bit more efficient, we like to do. And then just real quick, I will mention we added a rule earlier. You can find all the rules you've added here next to banking. So if you wanted to edit it or delete it, you can do so here. If you want to add a new rule that's not actually from the bank feeds here, like how we did it from the bank feeds earlier, you can actually just do it separately straight from the rules tab up here. And then you can see all of them. And like I said, you can edit them, you can delete them, you can disable them, whatever you want to do. So now let's go look at the scenario. Let's say that we have a little bit of a glitch in the bank feeds. Let's say that this Hicks Hardware purchase for $24.38 came over 2 times. I entered the first one, so I'm good to go there, but the second one is not actually real, it's just a glitch. I need to get this removed from my bank feeds. I don't want it just sitting here forever, that'll be confusing. So you can either click exclude, or if you're doing, especially if this glitch has hit multiples, then you can go over here and check mark the applicable duplicates and hit exclude like that. But once we hit exclude, it removes it from our bank feeds here. Does not add it to our bank register, so that's good because we don't want 2 transactions in there if it's really only one real transaction. But you can still find it over in the excluded tab right here. If you accidentally did this, you can undo it and it moves it back. So that can be handy, especially whenever glitches happen, which don't happen a whole lot, but every once in a while you will get that, and that's the easiest way to get rid of those. Now on the opposite side, let's say there was a glitch and for a day the transactions didn't pull over. Well, we still need to get them in QuickBooks because they're real transactions in your bank or credit card account. So we need to get them in even though they didn't hit the bank feeds. So to do this, I'll show you 2 different ways. You can either go to the bank register, which the easiest way I found to do that is just from the banking screen and go to bank register. We are in our checking account, and then you can go down here and add it. So if I want to add a check, I can do that. If I want to add an expense, I can do that. Add all the details, hit save, and then it would now be within QuickBooks, even though it didn't go through bank feeds. The other way to do this is to use this new box up here and click whichever one is appropriate. So if we wanted to do, again, just an expense, not a check, we could do it like this. Type in everything that's applicable. We'll say it's for supplies, we'll say it's for $12, and save. So now we've got it in the checking account bank register, even though, here it is, even though it did not come through our bank feeds because of the glitch. So that's a way to make sure if your transaction didn't pull through for whatever reason, that's how you can do it manually. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say that is a good wrap up. Just gives you some of the basics again for categorizing your transactions within QuickBooks Online. Of course, you can get way more in depth with it and just keep getting better and better, or you might find your own preferences on how you like to do things, but hopefully this has been helpful, maybe in finding some efficiencies you didn't know about before, just helping you get started with QuickBooks Online. You can find other videos about QuickBooks Online, taxes, and other things in our YouTube channel, and then I'll also be coming out with future videos as well, so make sure to check back on those if you're interested. Thanks for watching.